Monophobia. Monophobia is the phobia of being alone. To an extent, it is understandable. After all, we are social animals, meaning that we are supposed to be surrounded by other humans. In fact, if we don't interact with other people on a regular basis, that has serious consequences for our personal well-being, so much so that loneliness has been compared to obesity as well as smoking. With that said, people with monophobia take this to an excess, which can make even common tasks, such as eating and sleeping, a serious hassle for them as well as their loved ones. Hemophobia. It is perfectly normal for people to be concerned by the sight of blood. After all, blood is a precious, life-sustaining substance that is supposed to remain inside of people, meaning there is a high chance that something is wrong when interested individuals can see blood out and about. With that said, people with hemophobia are fearful of blood to an extreme extent, which is perhaps unsurprising when a lot of cases started out with said individuals having some kind of very painful or very traumatic experience. Necrophobia. Death and dead things are inherently scary, but most of us can manage our emotions surrounding these things. Necrophobia is a specific type of phobia that involves a fear of dead things and things that are associated with death. A person with this type of phobia may be afraid of dead bodies, as well as things such as coffins, tombstones, and graveyards. Trypophobia. Trypophobia is one of those phobias that can sound ridiculous on initial consideration, but becomes less so with further thought. In short, trypophobia is a fear of holes, but it isn't used for big holes so much as clusters of small holes, clusters of small bumps, and other irregular patterns. There is some speculation that trypophobia might have biological causes, because said phobia is sometimes triggered by things that should cause concern to interested individuals. For example, trypophobia can be triggered by holes made by insects. Likewise, trypophobia can be triggered by certain wounds as well as certain kinds of diseases that disfigure the skin. Claustrophobia. Claustrophobia is when someone is stuck in a tight, crowded space without being able to escape from it. As such, elevators, crowded rooms, and even small cars can be no-go zones for people suffering from a particularly bad case of the phobia. Claustrophobia is very common, but in most cases, people can manage to some extent. It is speculated by some specialists that claustrophobia is a so-called prepared phobia, meaning that humans are predisposed to it because it helped our ancestors survive the environments in which they found themselves. For obvious reasons, this is difficult to determine, meaning that more research is still needed on the matter. Glossophobia. Glossophobia is the fear of public speaking. It is common, so much so that some people think that there are more individuals who experience some kind of anxiety when speaking in public than individuals who do not. With that said, people with glossophobia go beyond anxiety, which can result in serious impairment in the relevant scenarios. Curiously, someone with glossophobia doesn't necessarily suffer similar issues when doing other things in public. For example, there are people who are anxious about speaking in public, but can either dance, sing, or put on other performances in public with no issues whatsoever. Arachnophobia. Arachnophobia is the fear of spiders and other arachnids. The sight of a spider can trigger a fear response, but in some cases, simply an image of an arachnid or the thought of a spider can lead to feelings of overwhelming fear and panic. So, why are so many people terrified of arachnids? While there are an estimated 35,000 different spider species, only around a dozen pose any type of real threat to humans. One of the most common explanations for this, and similar animal phobias, is that such creatures once posed a considerable threat to our ancestors, who lacked the medical know-how and technological tools to address injuries from animals and insects. As a result, evolution contributed to a predisposition to fear these creatures. Ophidiophobia. Ophidiophobia is the fear of snakes. This phobia is quite common and often attributed to evolutionary causes, personal experiences, or cultural influences. Some suggest that since snakes are sometimes poisonous, our ancestors who avoided such dangers were more likely to survive and pass down their genes. Another theory suggests that the fear of snakes and similar animals might arise out of an inherent fear of disease and contamination. Studies have shown that these animals tend to provoke a disgust response, which might explain why snake phobias are so common, yet people tend not to exhibit similar phobias of dangerous animals such as lions or bears. Acrophobia. Acrophobia, or the fear of heights, impacts more than 6% of people. This fear can lead to anxiety attacks and avoidance of high places. People who suffer from this phobia may go to great lengths to avoid high places such as bridges, towers, or tall buildings. While in some cases this fear of heights may be the result of a traumatic experience, current thinking suggests that this fear may have evolved as an adaptation to an environment in which a fall from heights posed a significant danger. While it is common for people to have some degree of fear when encountering heights, this phobia involves a severe fear that can result in panic attacks and avoidance behaviors. Cynophobia. Cynophobia, or the fear of dogs, is often associated with specific personal experiences, such as being bitten by a dog during childhood. Such events can be quite traumatic and can lead to fear responses that last well into adulthood. This particular phobia can be quite common. This phobia is not just a normal apprehension of unfamiliar canines. It is an irrational and excessive fear that can have a serious impact on a person's life and functioning. For example, a person with cynophobia might feel unable to walk down a certain street because they know that there is a dog living in that neighborhood. This avoidance can impact the individual's ability to function in their daily life and make it difficult to get to work, school, or other events outside of the home. Agoraphobia. Agoraphobia involves a fear of being alone in a situation or place where escape may be difficult. This type of phobia may include the fear of crowded areas, open spaces, or situations that are likely to trigger a panic attack. People will begin avoiding these trigger events, sometimes to the point that they cease leaving their home entirely. Approximately 1/3 of people with panic disorder develop agoraphobia. Agoraphobia usually develops sometime between late adolescence and mid-30s. 2/3 of people with agoraphobia are women. The disorder often begins as a spontaneous and unexpected panic attack, which then leads to anxiety over the possibility of another attack happening. Mysophobia. Mysophobia, or the excessive fear of germs and dirt, can lead people to engage in extreme cleaning, compulsive hand washing, and even avoidance of things or situations perceived as dirty. In some instances, this phobia may be related to obsessive-compulsive disorder. This common phobia can also result in people avoiding physical contact with other people out of fear of contamination, overuse of disinfectants, and excessive preoccupation with media reports about illness outbreaks. People with this phobia may also avoid areas where germs are more likely to be present, such as doctors' offices, airplanes, schools, and pharmacies.